Stanford University has dubbed the words American or immigrant as potentially harmful. Monday, the university released a 13-page guide to address the, quote, harmful language that it wants removed from its online properties. The guide is part of the Elimination of Harmful Language initiative launched in May. The goal was to eliminate forms of harmful language, including racist, violent, and biased language in Stanford websites and code.
News of the guidance went viral on social media, and many have called the initiative, quote, intensely stupid. And many people are right. Professor at the Stanford School of Medicine, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, also made his thoughts known, tweeting, "I remember how proud I was when I became a naturalized American citizen. I'm still proud to be an American, and I don't care that Stanford disapproves of my using the term." And honestly, the whole American thing is like not even one of the craziest examples on here.
So the reason that doesn't want you to say the term American is because of people who are from South America who are like, we're also American, and it excludes us. It pretends like all Americans are Americans. It's not necessarily like a patriotism issue the way that you might assume from that kind of a comment. But there are a lot of
really dumb. So some of our favorite, beating a dead horse normalizes violence against animals. There's a lot of
getting a dead cat for the same reason.
You can't say anything interesting ever.
Wait a minute. Okay, that's not true. Like, okay, so some of these I think are a little bit of an
stupid. You're not supposed to say stupid.
Well, we weren't allowed to call each other stupid when I was a kid.
You're not allowed to call people stupid. You can say that things are stupid.
I'd have to go back. I'd have to consult my mother on that one. I remember we were asked to, I wasn't allowed to say stupid, so she gave us a dictionary, and I ran around saying that I loathed my brother, I abhorred my brother. I was using all these kind of words instead, which I'm not sure helped. But look, some of them are things that I think most people have come to terms with by now. Things like not saying gypped, because of Roma and other kind of things which use people's identity.
I roll my eyes at all these things. But if they don't have that, they just don't mean that anymore.
But what if I was walking around saying, "Oh, I really Italianed this up"?
I probably wouldn't care.
I really Robbied this one.
Well, that's a little. You see how Robby is a little more personal than Italian people?
Well, maybe you don't identify that strongly as an Italian person.
People make fun of Italian people all the time. People make fun of Irish people.
I was just making fun of America Vespucci before we came onto the segment.
Right. This kind of gets confusing because it is okay sometimes to stereotype broadly or like tell jokes about people based on ethnicity, and sometimes it's not. And you can do it in a really mean and derogatory way.
The thing is, it's not about okay versus not okay. This is not a list where if you say any of these words on campus, they lock you up and put you in a gulag. This is a suggested...
Well, the people who wrote this list certainly would like the power to do that.
Robby, that's not fair. This is a suggested list that's promulgated by like a couple of IT departments and an IT African-American affinity group that is suggested language that people should try to
Elimination
get on board
of
with.
Harmful Language Initiative. Doesn't that sound dystopian, though?
It doesn't matter what it sounds like, Robby.
Excuse me.
What is the power or effect of it? I mean, I think you can be critical of it and think that some parts of it are silly without jumping to some bizarre conclusion, like this is more, draconian than it actually is.
Okay, sure. No one is being,
Look, obviously, there's obvious things on here.
Trial, but
Oriental, Indian giver, like there are things.
Okay, but there's also a lot of things on this list that are contentious and that are constantly changing. If, for instance, I noticed that you're not, according to this list, supposed to say survivor, like survivor of sexual assault. But survivor itself was a term invented to be preferred to victim by advocates, by people in this space themselves. So now, I guess now the woker of the woke have decided that that's not good. Like, this is rapidly changing.
The African-American one. You're not supposed to say African-American, you're supposed to say black, which, I mean, I prefer black, but the whole point of African-American was that people were moving away from Negro. So these things do change. In fact, I was speaking to someone in the diversity and inclusion space, a friend of mine recently, and they were frustrated because they were in a meeting and some other diversity inclusion person was mad at them for using language that pertain to their own identity. And the other diversity and inclusion person was like, well, we don't say that anymore. And she was like, who's we? I'm black. You know what I mean? So I think that even within this space, there's a lot of tensions as things are evolving rapidly, and some of the stuff is going to stick and some of it won't. But let me ask you this, Robby. Looking back at some of the ones that we all consider to be the socially appropriate thing to do, like let's say getting rid of Oriental, or some of these ones that use words that refer to people with diminished mental capacity and things like that we all don't say anymore. Do you think, we should say that stuff? Do you think it's a good positive evolution that we've moved away from some of that stigmatizing language? And if so, doesn't that mean that maybe some of this stuff, even if not all of it passes muster, is a push in the right direction?
I think a lot of these have lost or should be considered to have lost their power to stigmatize because they're so detached from what their original meaning was. For instance, what is some of the ones that are supposedly stigmatizing of Asian people, like what were the ones?
No can do. I think that was a Native American one.
Okay, but most people don't even know that's how it originates. So is it offensive if we've lost the collective memory of what the trauma wrapped up in it was?
Look, I love that Hall & Oates song with the No Can Do as a chorus, and that one was
Long Time No See.
Long Time No See.
What I was thinking of. I say that all the time.
Rule of thumb is one that some people say you should
Rule
say.
of thumb has very confusing origins. It is debated. No one knows
debated.
For sure.
But the reason why you're allegedly not supposed to say it is because apparently a man was allowed to beat his wife with a stick that was no bigger than his thumb.
I think that's an urban legend.
I think that is an urban legend. I think it's, but we can't miss out. It's not just that historically marginalized groups are being protected here. You're also supposed to avoid using the word Karen.
Yes, this is my favorite entry at all. Karen, which has just been invented within memory, is now a slur. So this list says, don't say Karen, instead say demanding or entitled white woman. Which is by far more offensive than the original term.
I have a very close friend named Karen. She is Egyptian and wasn't wild about the way that her name has been turned into this meaning.
Okay, I don't think the people who made this list are especially worried about stigmatization towards white people. I will just throw that out there.
Look what they're taking from us.
Oh, it's just silly. I mean, these things go viral every time. There's always lists of microaggressions at university, so this is nothing new.
No.
If this is the first time you've seen this before, I don't know how you've missed the last 8,000 iterations of the stories, but elite universities are always putting out, or they're just being discovered. I've written many stories. I've gotten scoops on those before where I've found the university's list of microaggressions. But it is a little bit pernicious because while it is voluntary, they're just saying we would like you to do this. A lot of campuses do maintain fairly robust reporting, kind of under like secret police type stuff for reporting people for saying things you don't like that are then followed up on, and like
In what
someone
way?
will.
Who's reporting someone for saying mailman?
It happens all the time.
And then what's going to happen to them? Show me the case of someone getting kicked out of Stanford, or their grades being put down, or not getting a job opportunity because they said man hours.
I've seen a cafeteria worker, and they probably get fired.
Give me an instance of that actually having happened.
So because I was going through a list of microaggressions once, and actual reports made, and this one was the cafeteria worker had put up a note in the cafeteria saying, "Please clean up for yourselves. We're not your mothers." That was reported for reinforcing, I think, gendered stereotypes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I also wouldn't say that. I would also prefer that people, not say
minimum
that.
wage cafeteria worker.
But not firing people. Like, we have to.
You care if people say that? I don't care if people say that.
Here's part of the problem, Robby.
It has a little bit of color.
In a lot of these cases, even if I agree with the underlying kind of ethos, as a leftist, I'm not supporting of firing people. In this economy, in a world where your ability to have health insurance and get your kids and your family checked up by a doctor is contingent on your employment.
I appreciate that, but I don't even agree with the underlying. I don't care if people say that. Why?
Part of the problem is that we are some of the anxiety around being fired and canceled and censured. It has to do with the fact that we live in a society where there's no social safety net, and people feel like I can do one little small thing, make one little small mistake, and it can destroy your life. It shouldn't, in any context, destroy your life. So, look, I think most of this is maybe because I'm too old, it goes a little too far for my taste. Some of these, I think, are socially acceptable and have been internalized, even though they probably thought they were weird at the time that we made some of these shifts, because it is good to move away from a world where we use other people's identifying characteristics to mean stupid or dumb or awful.
But so many of these are just... For instance, I just came across, you're not supposed to say wheelchair bound. You're supposed to say person who uses a wheelchair. I can see how I guess that's a little softer and a little nicer and a little gentler. It's much longer. So many of these are just like stretching language out, making it take longer to write and say and communicate. The purpose of language is to concisely communicate ideas.
But it also is communicating.
We're dragging things out we're not treating people in wheelchairs any better or worse based on using this terminology.
Right, but like, I'm not trying to argue everyone, but you do see what the purpose of that, though, is. It's not just to make it longer. It's to say that there are people who are in a wheelchair who are not confined to a wheelchair, bound to a wheelchair, or otherwise restricted. Sometimes people use wheelchairs for some of the time. It's an aid in mobility, but they can still walk and move around a little bit. They're in there temporarily, things like that. So it's just trying to more accurately, just be more descriptive. And I don't think that you should be mad at people for trying to be more descriptive. No, the issue is being mad at people for not using your preferred language, not the idea that language should evolve to be more accurate.
But if it's just making it longer, harder to say, is it making more accurate? George Carlin has this great routine, you've probably seen it, about soft language, how shell shock syndrome becomes post-traumatic stress disorder over a period of time. There's all these in-between stages where the term gets a little longer, still describing the same concept, being really screwed up because you got blown apart in war. And at no point are we not doing that anymore, or making those people's lives better, or not putting them in a situation. We're just describing it in nicer, longer, gentler terms. And in fact, maybe disguising the horror of the condition by making it longer. I think about that a lot.
I think that's fine. I think that tar baby is not that. And like, this list has a lot of diversity on it, and it's worth taking a look at. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Don't you ever call me a Karen again? You used the full slur, Briahna. More Rising after this.